If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson drives for every dime.
Welcome to Simply the Law of Life, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Simply the Law of Life provides free legal advice and encourages happiness and quality of life. Now, here's Simply the Law of Life with Gary C. Johnson and Keith Casebolt.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into Simply the Law of Life radio program. I'm Keith Casebolt, the creator of this show and the guy that keeps us straight every week, my dear friend Gary C. Johnson.
Isn't it wonderful to be alive and to be here and to get to visit with our friends? Hey, guys and gals, how you doing out there?
I enjoy it more today than I've ever enjoyed it in my life.
It's just wonderful, wonderful. And today we're going to talk about some stuff called alibis.
Oh, alibis.
Alibis.
We all need alibis.
And I got them from the Think and Grow Rich book by Napoleon Hill, which I would strongly recommend to anyone that wants to try to have a better insight into how to deal with this world.
Unique character that he was actually born into poverty. I think he actually had a dirt floor.
Yep.
I mean, you can't get any worse off than a dirt floor, but this guy, he had really a good intellect, and he did some amazing things.
I'm going to read to you, my friends, about the 57 famous alibis by Old Man If.
Old Man If.
Old Man If.
Do we get to use these? Well, I guess the question is, are we already using them?
I'm going to read you what he has to say about it. People who do not succeed have one distinguishing trait in common. They know all the reasons for failure and have what they believe to be airtight alibis to explain away their own lack of achievement. And we've been there, done that, right?
Oh, my goodness. Are you kidding?
Some of these alibis are clever, and a few of them are justifiable by the facts. But alibis cannot be used for money or to make money. The world wants to know only one thing. Have you achieved success? A character analyst compiled a list of the most commonly used alibis that people use to prevent themselves from having to make a decision.
So we use these as roadblocks?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
As you read the list, namely examine yourself carefully and determine how many of these alibis, if any, are your property that you own.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, turn up the radio because as Gary reads these, now we've got to say, yes, I've been there.
Do I own this?
I've done that, okay.
Remember, too, the philosophy presented in this book, which is this entire book, makes every one of those alibis obsolete. That's why I say that you might want to get a hold of this book, folks, by Napoleon Hill. The first if I didn't have a wife and family, I would.
Oh. Well, you could have moved across the country. You could have pursued a... Yeah.
If I had enough pull, I could. Could what?
How many times have we said that?
If I just had money, I could.
Well, you got to have money to make money, Gary.
You know, if I just had a chance to get a good education, I could.
Yeah, well...
If I could get a good job, I could. If I'd just been in better health, I could. If there had only been time.
That may be the number one. If I just had the time, I could have learned how to play the guitar. I could have done this. I could have done that.
If I'd have been born when times were better.
Woo! Yeah, back in the good old days when you had an opportunity to start a company or do something, because now everybody's already created everything.
That's right, it's done.
Yeah.
If other people just understood me. If. This is the ifs, right? We're reading the 57 famous alibis by Old Man If, okay? For those of you that just tuned in. If conditions around me were only different, I could.
Uh-huh.
Okay. If I could live my life over again, duh.
Oh, my goodness. What an if.
If I did not fear what they would say, I could. You know, if I'd have just been given a chance, if.
God, isn't that a big one? If I'd have been given the chance, I could have done that.
You know, if I now had a chance, I could.
We're doubling down.
Yeah.
If I'd have had a chance, or if someone would just give it to me now.
You know, if all those other people didn't have it in for me, I could do this.
Well, we know those people have blocked us from succeeding because they have sat up at night and plotted against us.
They.
The
elusive theys.
Oh, what a group.
Okay. If nothing happens to stop me, I could.
But I'm sure there will be.
Fully planning for there to be a lot to stop them, okay?
If there's no roadblocks and nothing stops me, I could do it.
Yeah. If I were just young, I could. Okay.
You know, I did that one the other day.
I know. I heard you say it.
I said it to you, and you said, Keith, Colonel Sanders started KFC when he was 65.
That's right.
But I sat right here and said, Gary, I'm too old to do this right now.
You used the big if.
I used the big if.
You own that one, right?
That's mine.
You know, if I could only do it the way I want.
Yeah, but yeah, if I could just run that company the way I want to run it.
You know, if I'd have just been born rich, I could have done all kinds of things, right?
Oh, that silver spoon. Yeah. Those people who had the big advantage because they were born with wealth and you weren't.
Well, I believe really and truly we were both born with a silver spoon, Keith, and somebody stole it and put it in some other baby's mouth when we were in the hospital. You know?
Gave us the plastic one?
Yeah.
It could very well have happened, my friend.
You know, if I'd ever been in a position to meet the right people, I could.
If I could have only met those people, shook their hand, they would have seen all the genius in me and wanted to work with me.
And here's a really good one that I used to own. If I had the talent that some people have, I could.
How many times have I said, it just comes easy for those people.
Mm-hmm.
If I just had their talent.
Yeah. Well, you know, like the musicians and the artists and things. I have none of that talent. But I always regretted it.
Yeah, I thought it came easy to them until I listened to a couple of interviews and found out that they practiced 10 hours a day. Didn't come as easy as I thought it did.
Well, did you ever learn?
Well, of course not. If I'd only had the time, if I'd had the time to practice 10 hours a day, I could have learned.
Yeah.
There comes that if again.
Yeah. Okay, there's more ifs.
All right.
There was 57 of the great alibis, you know.
So far, I think I own most of them.
Okay. You know, if I had just tried, I could.
How many times has that been said?
How many times have you said, well, even in school, if I'd have tried, I could have got an A?
Hey,
right?
If I'd have tried, I could have made A's.
If I'd really tried, I could have been number one in the class, right?
Yeah, if I'd have tried, I could have made the ball team. We've said that.
If I'd have tried.
If I'd have tried to get that job or that promotion, I could have got it. If I had have tried.
If I dared to do
try,
so.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, if I'd only recognized the past opportunities.
Oh, Gary, you're giving us a lot of stress with these ifs.
Ifs, if. Hey, guys and gals that are listening, how many of you own some of these ifs?
Anybody that hasn't had one that applies yet, raise your hand. You're doing great.
Here's a good one. If other people just didn't get on my nerves, I could.
Aggravation.
You know, if I didn't have to do all the work around the house, look after the children, and do all of this other stuff, I could.
Yeah. If I didn't have to take care, how many?
And that's probably true.
Well,
no
now, you know what?
I can tell you right now that that's a legitimate if.
I agree with you. Any working mom that's out there right now, let's throw that one out because you do double work.
Well, anybody that's trying to keep house and take care of the children, it's the hardest doggone job in the universe.
And then to try to hold down a job on top of it? I mean, now you're working 3 jobs a day.
So, folks, that's a legitimate if. Okay?
You can own that one, and rightfully so.
And rightfully so. If I could just save some money, I could.
That seems to have been a tough one. You know, I can't. I'm telling you, when I was probably 18 years old, I heard Earl Nightingale say, "Here's the secret to having a lot of money: just save 10% of everything you make." It was pretty simple. Boy, I wished I'd listened to him 40 years ago.
Here's a good one. If my boss just appreciated me.
Why doesn't the boss understand?
Right?
Yeah.
Here's a good one. If I'd only had somebody to help me, I could have.
If I could have just got somebody to push me and help me and point me in the right direction.
I could have, right?
Boy, that's a
If.
great.
That's a big
great
if, right?
Yeah, it is.
Here's another big if. If my family had just understood me.
Yeah. Encouraged.
Don't you love these
appreciated.
ifs?
I love them because I didn't realize how many roadblocks we had conjured up to keep us from doing things.
If I had lived in a big city, I could do all of these things.
Yeah.
If I hadn't been more in the head of a holler, right?
You know, I went to Cincinnati one time and met a great radio guy. And he said, "Why do you want to come to Cincinnati?" And I said, "Because I want to be good." And he said, "Why can't you talk into a microphone and be good where you're at?" And at the time, I thought, "Hey, Jim Scott, that doesn't make a lot of sense." But now that I look back on it, he was telling me to get rid of one of those ifs.
Here's another big. If I could have some help just getting started.
That's all you need. A little push, a little seed money, if someone would just help me.
Here's another good if. If I were only free from all of my obligations, I could.
Those hold you back.
Right? Here's a good one. If I had the personality of some people.
Yeah.
Now here's one, Keith, that I probably own that I'm going to read you.
Okay. I can't wait to hear this.
If I were not so fat.
No. You don't own that one, my friend. The guy across the table kind of owns that one. We've got a little deal going on the television set. We've got Gary brought in some scales, and we've been playing around with them for the last 3 months. We have had a ball. The scales haven't moved down any, but it sure has struck up some good conversation between Gary and Ken and Tyler and me.
Here's a good one. If people just recognized my talents.
Yeah. Why can't they see that I need to be in that position or have that job or that I'm qualified?
Here's another if. If just once I could get a break, I could, right?
I'd be on top. Everybody else got one.
Here's another one. If I could only get out of debt. And for those of you that may have just tuned in, we're reading from Napoleon Hill's book, The 57 Famous Alibis to Keep You from Achieving Success by Old Man If.
Yeah. Now,
If.
the one you just did on the debt, I find that one really amusing. If I could only just get out of debt. I did that one time. Guess what I did? I went back in debt. So for those of you that may own that one, you're not the only one.
Here's one. If I hadn't already failed,
Yeah.
I could go forward and do something.
It hurts so bad. Now I know how painful it is to want something and fail at it.
Yep.
I understand that one.
Now here's one that I might own. If I only knew how, I could.
Well, isn't that the biggie? Yeah. If I just knew how to make this work,
Yeah,
I got a great idea if I just knew how to make it work.
yeah. Here's the one. If everybody wasn't against me.
We actually say these things.
Yeah,
And believe it.
yeah. That's an if.
I'm not getting that job because everybody's against me.
Or if I just had some pull.
Yeah.
If I just knew the right people. All that things. Okay, folks, how many of these ifs do you own? There's a few more. One, if I didn't have so many worries.
We've been talking about that on the show, about how worry has really crippled people from succeeding and doing the things that they want to in life.
And how many times, my friends, have I begged you to not worry about anything you can't change? If you can change it, worry about it. Figure it out. If you can't change it, don't let it take up 1 second of your thought. If you can't change it.
And Gary, I've had so many people say to me, you can't do that. You have to worry about those things. And I'm saying, you didn't listen to my friend. If you can't change it, why worry about it?
It's a good one. How many of you own this one? Okay, you ready for it, my friends? If I just married the right person.
Oh, Lord. I hope a couple wasn't in the car just listening and kind of looked over at each other. That one could have got us in trouble. Yeah, if I had married into the right family. Yeah. Could have been doing okay. I'm sure the spouse is probably saying the same thing.
Here's a good one. If everybody I knew weren't so dumb. Any of you own that one, huh? If my family were not so extravagant, I could.
Yeah, spent me into poverty.
You know, here's another one. If I was just sure of myself, I could. As though you have to be sure.
That's a good one, isn't it? If I knew this idea was going to work, I'd start this business. Or if I knew I would get the job, I would apply for it. If I knew all the things would work out. How many times have you told us, could be a good thing, could be a bad thing?
Time will tell.
Time will tell. There's nothing sure, but yet we use that as a roadblock.
If I had some good luck instead of bad.
You know, I've seen that one time and time again. Some people are just so lucky. Everything goes their way.
Yeah. Here's another good one. If I had not been born under the wrong star, I could.
We even believe that.
Oh, and here's another good one. If it were not absolutely true that what is to be will be.
It wasn't my destiny.
That's right.
It is what it is.
Another good one. If I did not have to work so hard, I could.
Sure.
Here's one that a lot of us own. If I hadn't lost my money, I could.
If I just had that money back, I could do something with it and turn it into something.
If I just lived in a different neighborhood, I could do some stuff, right?
Yeah, because I would be around those people. They.
Here's one, my friends, that every one of you may own. If I didn't have a past.
Whoa. Now that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I hadn't have made those mistakes when I was in my 20s, I could do this or I could do that. Yeah, but now I can't because
of all the mistakes I made. Right?
Somebody's going to bring it up.
Another one. If I only had a business of my own, I could. Right?
Sure. Because anybody that's got a business is just making all kinds of money and they don't have to do anything, right?
Another big if here. Ready? If other people would only listen to me.
If I could only be heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then there's the last one. If, and this is the greatest of them all. Here it is. I had the courage to see myself as I really am. I would find out what is wrong with me and correct it. Then I might have a chance to profit by my mistakes and learn something from the experiences of others. For I know that there is something wrong with me, or I would now be where I would have been if I had spent more time analyzing my weaknesses and less time building alibis to cover them.
Now that is an important if.
If I had the courage to see myself.
If I just had the courage to own up and say, all of these alibis are not true. The problem lies within that I didn't do the things I needed to do to get there.
I'm going to read you what else he says about these alibis. Building alibis with which to explain away failure is a national pastime. The habit is as old as the human race and is fatal to success. Why do people cling to their pet alibis? The answer is obvious. They defend their alibis because they create them. A man's alibi is the child of his own imagination. It is human nature to defend one's own brainchild, which is your alibi. Building alibis is a deeply rooted habit. Habits are difficult to break, especially when they provide justification for something we do or don't do. Plato had this truth in mind when he said, "The first and best victory is to conquer self." To be conquered by self is, of all things, the most shameful and vile.
Isn't it amazing that here's a book that's 100 years old, quoting people who lived hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and we still have the same problem today in 2021?
And first we have to conquer ourselves.
Because we're still using alibis of saying if when it all comes within.
Another ancient philosopher had the same thought in mind when he said, "It was a great surprise to me when I discovered that most of the ugliness I saw in others was but a reflection of my own nature."
Ooh.
Think of that, huh?
That is pretty deep.
"It has always been a mystery to me," said Albert Hubbard, "why people spend so much time deliberately fooling themselves by creating alibis to cover their weaknesses. If used differently, this same time would be sufficient to cure the weakness, then no alibis would ever be needed." In parting, I would remind you that life is a checkerboard, and the player opposite you is time. Think about that. Life is a checkerboard, and the opposite player to you is time, okay? If you hesitate before moving or neglect to move promptly, your man will be wiped off the board by time. You are playing against a partner who will not tolerate indecision.
Gary,
I think that's a good lesson today on the ifs and the alibis
and
the
basically
indecision.
what the book is saying, if I get this right, it is far better to say, I tried and it didn't work. I'll try again.
Most of the time when you try, it does work.
Most of the time, yeah, it does. But at least you know the answer. But these ifs, all they do is end up running you out of time.
And it's like he
And
says,
time wins.
it's a natural defensive mechanism that everyone has. And it's a habit to come up with these ifs.
And is it because of the fear of failure? The fear
Absolutely.
The fear of pain, criticism?
It's fear.
So what we're saying is, I would rather accept the pain of not trying because it doesn't hurt as bad as saying, I tried.
You fix it so it won't hurt with the ifs.
So in other words, you're saying, I could have done it. I didn't fail. I just didn't decide to try.
If it hadn't been for these things, I could have.
Yeah, and if it hadn't been for the family, I would have.
And it's a mechanism for us to avoid the pain of knowing we should have and could have, but we just didn't.
As opposed to doing the self-analysis and saying, the truth of the matter is, I just didn't do it, or I was afraid to do it. I was afraid to try.
Let me read you this. Men with negative minds told George Washington he could not hope to win against the vastly superior forces of the British. But he exercised his defined right to believe. Therefore, this book was published under the protection of the Stars and Stripes, with the name of Lord Cornwallis had been seen and forgotten.
So, in other words, had George Washington listened to the people who said all of the ifs and the naysayers, America wouldn't be here.
Well, he says Doubting Thomas is scorned and scoffed at Henry Ford.
Mm-hmm.
When he tried out his first crudely built automobile on the streets of Detroit. Some said the thing never would become practical. Others said no one would pay money for such a stupid thing. Well, after all, we have horses.
Why do we need a car? So that's a good question to ask our friends. Do you have people around you that when you say, I would like to do this or I would like to try this, that they look at you and say, oh, it would never work. You're not cut out for that, or you couldn't do that job. I mean, that's the people giving you the ifs. Again, if I just had the support of the people around me, I could have gone after it.
And then he goes on to say this. Mind control is a result of self-discipline and habit. You either control your mind or it controls you. There is no halfway compromise. The most practical of all methods for controlling the mind is the habit of keeping it busy with a definite purpose, backed by a definite plan. Study the record of any man who has achieved noteworthy success, and you will observe that he has control over his own mind. Moreover, that he exercises that control and directs it toward the attainment of definite objectives. Without this control, success is never possible for anyone.
So the author is saying once you give the mind an assignment and you keep the mind busy with the assignment, there's no time to come up with ifs.
For it to come up with all this other stuff, all this chatter and all of this naysaying and all this negativity.
Because you're too busy working toward the goal.
Right.
Because you've got an assignment.
It's the truth.
So anytime the mind strays with the ifs or the chatter, you say, get back to work.
Let's figure this out.
We got things to do.
That's it.
Well, that was an interesting subject. I wonder how many of our friends owned any of the ifs. And the goal would be this week is not to use an if, to use I will.
I can. I shall.
Can. I deserve.
When in doubt, go forward, my friends.
I should. I like all of that.
And don't ever use the excuse of being too old. As long as you're alive, you can achieve and do. As long as you're breathing, and you can do it. And you will get immense satisfaction out of going forward. Satisfaction you will never get out of being indecisive and using these ifs.
You know, that's the greatest point I think you made in the whole program. If you're alive today and you're listening to this program, that means one thing. It's never too late.
That's right.
You can start today.
And you have the ability to do it, my friends, because each and every one of you has a unique talent. Studies have shown that everybody born can do something better than 10,000 other people. You got the gifts. You got the gift of life, my friends. You're unique. There'll never be another one like you, ever, again.
And you're here.
In eternity. And you're here, and you're able to listen to this program. Let's go forward.
Well, this would be a good week to hear from our friends. You can contact Gary at garycjohnson.com. If you had one of the ifs, you can tell us which one applied to you and that you've decided to get rid of it and to go forward. You can catch Gary's television show Tuesday nights on WYMT, your CBS affiliate, at 7 p.m., Simply the Law of Life. A late-night replay is in Central Kentucky on WKYT, your CBS affiliate. We start the week early at 6:30 a.m. on your Fox affiliate on Monday morning and start the weekend on Friday morning at 6:30 a.m. Every week you can catch our radio show right here on your favorite station at this same time. And if you would like to get in touch with Gary, it's Gary at GaryCJohnson.com. My friend, no ifs this week.
No ifs.
Only I will.
Yep, I can.
On behalf of Gary C. Johnson, I'm Keith Casebolt. Thank you so much for taking this time to tune in. As always, Gary and I look forward to seeing you again next week, right here at this same time.
Thank you for listening to Simply the Law of Life, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Until next week, may you be safe, blessed, and happy.
If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson cries for every dime.